You'll likely never know their names, their stories, their pain, but there are people in your own community and across this entire world that are making the decision today to not go on with their life. And we've been thinking about what it means to save a life all wrong. Today I listened to a neurosurgeon, a trauma neurosurgeon, talk about how today was his last day of work after a 40-year career, a successful, prestigious career, working to save lives. And he recounted that, in his early days about how a young woman had died under his hands when he was doing chest compressions, and about how that changed his life. And of course, reflecting on his career and his retirement, he went on to talk about all the lives that he had saved during his 40 years in the line of work. And it got me to thinking that I think we think about what it means to save a life, and it's been wrong. Our thinking about it has been wrong. So oftentimes when we think about saving life, we think about heroes, of course, naturally. The police officer, the fire and rescue team, the emergency surgeons, the heart surgeons, the brain surgeons, everyone in the medical field, the nurses, the RNs, all the folks which are extremely important and receive 100% of the credit when we think about saving lives. But I think what we miss is the everyday people. And again, I don't necessarily mean the everyday heroes who come out of the blue seemingly and save lives. There was a young man I had read about yesterday that did amazing job saving the life of a young boy who was essentially drowning in the Pacific Ocean, and he came in and rescued him, and a truly heroic young man. And there's acts of heroism like that all the time. People run into burning buildings and, save people that are choking, and, come to the rescue when someone falls on a train tracks. And these are just extraordinary acts of heroism and life-saving acts that should absolutely be celebrated as well. And so while I recognize those two categories of people, if you will, for their amazing efforts caring for humanity, what I'm kind of thinking about is that we have an opportunity as people, to use our compassion, use our humanity, use our love for others to come into people's lives in extraordinary ways and truly save their life. And what I mean by that is there are a lot of people on the brink of just self-harm. There's so many people that are hurting. I have an app in my community. I've seen multiple self-harm attempts and successful self-harm, sadly, just in this last 2 weeks alone. And every day, the reality is every day across this country and across this world, people are getting to the point where they feel like there's no hope for something better, where they feel so isolated, so alone. They feel like they're, walking in quicksand and drowning, or trying to stay afloat in quicksand, and it's taking them down, and they're walking at night and alone through dark places, and they're in oceans where they're trying to keep their head above water. And it's a time of much hurt and much pain. People are going through tremendous battles that we don't know about, tremendous battles with their mental health, their physical health, people's loved ones. Even one of my precious followers on here, her husband being diagnosed with metastatic, I can never say that, cancer. And it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart to think about what people are going through. Marriages under tremendous stress, relationships with children, being torn apart, people in increasing isolation and anxiety with everything in the whole world that's going on. and people are suffering. And so we have within ourselves the ability and the capacity to come into other people's lives unexpectedly and without any expectation of anything back, and to give of ourselves in the way that people need, just to feel like they have a lifeline to continue. And it's not, you don't have to be a doctor or a life-saving career. You don't have to have extraordinary skills. All you have to do is have a heart that cares about others. All you have to do is have a willingness to show up when people need an ear or a shoulder to cry on. All you have to do is make up your mind and say, let me be more aware of the pain and the suffering, perhaps. Let me make myself a little bit more uncomfortable as I look around the people in and outside of my circle, who may be hurting, and just sit with somebody today. Just sit with someone and say you're there for them. Even if you don't have the words, just let them know through your presence that you're a soft landing space for them. And, encourage someone, share your personal stories of strength and resilience, pull from yourself what you think you might not have, because it truly can make a difference in someone's life, and it can truly save their life when they're considering taking steps to not be on this earth anymore. You can be the only one between them and that decision. But if you reach out with compassion and love and kindness and sensitivity and non-judgment, and you sit with them and you listen and you give them a hug. And I'm not saying it's all this simplistic, okay? I understand that there are severe mental health and spiritual battles that people are going with, and I'm not saying that this solves everything, okay? But I think we need to think about what it means to save a life in a new way, in small ways. Do you have the financial capacity to buy someone groceries or pay a bill, without expectation of acknowledgement or a reward? I'm just saying, look, this is a monster of a problem right now. People are so hopeless. They're in states of devastation and depression, and it makes sense because the world is becoming increasingly dark and under pressure and stressful and isolating. And I think you can admit that even if you're not necessarily going through it. I think if you're aware, just even walking around in society, you can feel the desperation, the hopelessness on a lot of people. And what about just sparking up a conversation with someone? How are you really doing today? Can I be an ear for you? A lot of people just don't have anyone in their corner. And honestly, myself, I have my husband, and I have God, and I have my son, and I have on and off my parents. But really, to be truthful, I really don't have any friends. I don't have a Christian body of folks right now who are loving on me and surrounding me. And I've gone through so many trials and tribulations that I'll share with you. So part of why I bring this forward today is because I know what it feels like to be in that place alone. And it is so dark and sad, and you can begin thinking things that you would never think before about your future, if because you're a human being and those thoughts will sometimes come in. But I just want to encourage you today, be there for someone, show support to them, show love for them. You don't have to be in a life-saving career. You don't have to, have some resume of heroism, to bring forth. You just have to have love and compassion for other people, and you can really, really, truly make a difference in their lives.